There we go. Okay. So working with EGLE. So we're going to talk a little bit about who does what in relation to drinking water and sewer, because we often hear of those two things from mobile home parks together. So we wanted to give you some resources for both of those things. How to call with concerns and sort of who to call. So we have some maps showing our different staff. How to file a written complaint, what info to include, and info that we might ask you if you talk to us, and then how you can ways to be anonymous. Kind of what happens with your concern after you call EGLE, and then I was sent some questions about drinking water, so I was going to cover those items, and then if there should be time at the end for additional questions. So who does what at EGLE? So on my left, there's Water Resources Division. You'll see at the top it's got an acronym of WRD. So we live in acronym land and like to use those to kind of describe a lot of things. So EGLE regulates wastewater or sewer where a park would use more than 6,000 gallons a day. And this doesn't have to be a very big park. 6,000 gallons a day seems like a lot of water, but it really isn't. So a lot of our even smaller parks that have 100 lots or so or smaller than that might have an EGLE regulated wastewater system. So we enforce Part 31 and Part 22 groundwater discharge rules. For sewer, we do compliance inspections, review permits. They may do some sampling depending on the need. And then we would investigate concerns related to sewer at a park. And we might work with the local health department and Lara to resolve whatever that issue is. On the drinking water side of things, we're called DWEHD, which is Drinking Water and Environmental Health Division. Our division does quite a few things, but the one that is related to this presentation tonight is regulating drinking water at mobile home parks that have on-site water systems, so well systems on-site. The Safe Drinking Water Act is the rules that we enforce. And we review compliance samples and compliance of the water system itself and make determinations about their sample results. Look at the well condition and the well capacity to make sure that they have enough water to provide. And then the storage of water and the piping that delivers the water to your house. We would investigate and address drinking water concerns. And we also might work with the local health department and Lara on a resolution. And Lara, if you're not familiar, is licensing and regulatory affairs, and they license mobile home parks in the state. So this is a picture of some wastewater systems. And this just shows all of the different types of discharges that are covered by Water Resources Division. And the two big ones that are most common for a mobile home park are listed by number 3, which is NPDES permits and state permits of groundwater discharge. So NPDES stands for National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, I think. And those are typically discharges where they discharge treated wastewater to a surface water body. So to a river, lake, stream, that kind of thing. Groundwater discharge is a usually conventional septic system where it's just a really large septic system. So both of those are permitted in Michigan. And Water Resources Division permits or regulates both of those. So for sewer, who do you call? So Water Resources Division handles all of those. And Eliza, if you can share the link for the map in the chat.
Oh, she's doing that.
So we have, they're actually going to show on the next screen. So we have, we call it a coverage map, but basically staff are distributed throughout the state. And so there's always going to be a local person that you could call and ask questions. If you are in a park and there is sewage on the ground, you want to call the local health department. So the local health department is wants to know if there's sewage on the ground. So this is an active leak, whether it's under your house, in the road, anything like that. You want to call the local health department, and then you can call EGLE. So local health department is typically closer to where you are than where EGLE is. And so they might be able to send somebody out to look at it faster than we can get out there. We also have a pollution emergency alerting system. You might hear it called PEAS. So for something that's like a really large volume, you can call that. It's like just an 800 number where you can report stuff. You can be absolutely anonymous. You don't even have to give anybody your name or phone number to report to that. And then on the screen is just some examples of things that we might ask you if you wanted to file a complaint in writing. We would ask that you include this information, but if you would prefer to talk to somebody on the phone, you can call and then we would ask you these types of questions. The biggest thing that we need to know is where it is, where's the sewage, so we can go out and look, and how long has it been going on. Those are probably the two biggest things that people are that we're gonna ask you. And then if it's like under your house, we would also ask if you've reported it to management, because we have to give them an opportunity to fix it first. And then if it's under your house, are you sure that it's not something going on with your house? So the park is generally responsible up to the riser, what we call the riser. So there's usually a crack or something where the sewer line, and every lot will have one. And so your house connects to that spot at that crack or riser. So the park is generally responsible to the riser, and then you're responsible from the riser to your house. So if it's leaking under your house, it's important to know whether it's on your side of the riser or the park side of the riser. All right, these are the maps that I mentioned, and we're going to put the links to those maps in the chat so you can see them. But on the left is the surface water NPDES permit discharge staff, and then on the right is the groundwater discharge staff. And you can see, so I'm going to use Kalamazoo County as an example. You can see the word Kalamazoo written across the county. There's a little building symbol. That's because our office is in Kalamazoo County. And then you can see it says J Rubio under that. So then on the left, you can go look up Jeremy. His name's Jeremy, but you can look up Jeremy's phone number. So that's pretty much how the map works. So for drinking water, very similar to sewer. We want to know if you've reported whatever the issue is to park management, and what did they tell you? Because we hear very interesting things about what management tells residents about their drinking water. And then we can usually figure out by the park name whether you are in a park that has a community water supply or whether you're in a park that's connected to city water. But if you know, that's helpful information for us. And one of the links here at the top is a list to all of the community water supplies in the state. So if you know the name of the park that you live in, but you're not sure where your water is coming from, if you can find the name of your park by county on that list, then you would have a community water supply. And so we're going to ask you very similar things, right? Have you contacted management or maintenance, and what did they tell you? And then what is your concern and how long has it been going on? And then the other thing that we might ask is if you have low or no water pressure, kind of similar to the sewage, is it on your side or the park side? So, you know, do you have a leak someplace in your house? That kind of thing. And same as sewer, the park's responsible up to the riser or the crock, and then the residents responsible after that. Though this is the community water supply map. So if we use Kalamazoo County again as an example, you'll see there's a number 51 in Kalamazoo County, and then you look for District 51 on the map, and you'll see it says Nathan Utzi, PE engineer, with his phone number. So he covers Kalamazoo County. One thing I wanted to specifically point out on the community water supply map is that under some of the districts, for example, Bay City, Warren, and Kalamazoo, and Grand Rapids, you'll see where it says MHC and then a person's name instead of a numbered district. So that is a person that exclusively covers manufactured housing. So this is a good person for you to call if you're in the district. So they might do work for every park in the district, and they're a good person for you to reach out to. So if you're in Kalamazoo, since that's our example, we have a MHC person, Mark Krensline, and you can reach out to him, where he has some more familiarity with mobile home parks than some of the other folks in the district. But anybody should be able to answer questions. These are areas of the state that have higher numbers of mobile home parks. And so we try to have a person that kind of has a specialty in that area. Drinking water has an online portal where you can submit a drinking water concern. It's called the Drinking Water Concern Survey, and there's a link that takes you directly to the survey. It asks, you can just type in it. So there's drop-down menus of pick off a list and comment boxes where you can type stuff in. It asks you for contact information, and we would appreciate if you leave contact information so that we can talk to you. But there is a box to check so that you can say that you want to be anonymous. And what that does is keep your name out of a FOIA request. So anybody can send a Freedom of Information Act request to the state of Michigan, and we redact names from drinking water concerns that are submitted, and then your name would also not be released to park management. So I wanted that to make sure we talked about that, because I know a lot of people that call have fear of retaliation if if management finds out. So we will not release your name to management unless you want us to. So what happens with your concern? And this is pretty true for both sewer and water. We're going to educate the park owner on their responsibilities, or if they're violating any laws. If they're violating laws, typically we would send formal correspondence to let them know about that. And then we would also provide education to the resident on what laws and rules there are surrounding their concern and what could be causing the issue and what we can or cannot do to correct the concern. And then an investigation that we would do might involve us talking to the owner or the operator. All community water supplies are required to have a certified drinking water operator. So sometimes that person works directly for the management company, and sometimes they're a contractor. So we usually talk to the operator because they usually know more about the water system than on-site management does. We would probably do a site visit. There may be a report of our findings or a notice to the owner. And then we may do an additional investigation or any other follow-up actions. All right, so these were the questions that were kind of sent to me before, and I think they're common ones that I hear. So we're going to talk a little bit about them, and then I'm happy to answer other questions that anybody else might have. All right. Brown water is gross, but it is often drinkable. And when I say drinkable, I mean potable. So meaning that it doesn't have bacteria in it. A side effect of living in Michigan is that there's a lot of iron in the groundwater, and most mobile home parks, if they have water on site, a well system, they're pumping groundwater. So iron in groundwater makes the water brown, orange, and yellow. It just looks off, right? I have seen lots of glasses of water from people's faucets that is orange. I cannot imagine that that tastes good. But we do require bacteria testing on a community water supply and lots of other testing. And iron is not a regulated contaminant under the Safe Drinking Water Act. So water with only iron in it, while it's going to probably taste bad and look bad and probably smell bad, is technically drinkable by Safe Drinking Water Act standards. Water that's black or gray is typically manganese, which also is naturally occurring in groundwater and is also not regulated by the Safe Drinking Water Act. So times where you might see worse discolorization is during and after flushing, during or after a water main break, or some other form of disturbance to the system. So like if they're moving houses in and out, where they're connecting and disconnecting houses, that can kind of cause, I'm going to say, jiggling of the water main, where you might get some sediment that breaks loose and causes that discolorization. So most of the time, orange water is iron sediment. If it's really thick, cloudy orange, it's usually sediment that's built up in the mains. And flushing is the best way to get that out. So we want to see parks do routine flushing. We get asked a lot about billing, water and sewer billing, and water rates are actually not regulated in the state of Michigan. There's a lot of other utilities that are part of the Public Service Commission, like gas and electric. But water is not under the Public Service Commission, so there are no regulations on water rates in the state. Questions on price gouging or rate fairness, we hear a lot of that. They're best directed to legal aid. And then I have a couple links here. One's for renters' rights, and then one is for how to file a complaint at the Attorney General's office. If you're being billed for water and you have like really inconsistent bills, which I hear a lot about, or like all of a sudden there's like really high ones and you feel that you're being price gouged, there is a process to file a complaint at the Attorney General's office under their Consumer Protection Program. So what's the difference between water pressure violations and water quality violations, and why does a pressure violation not prompt necessarily an investigation into water quality? So the two biggest things that we hear about from mobile home parks are water quality issues, usually orange, black, brown water. And then the other one is that they have low pressure or the water's shut off frequently. Pressure is fairly easy to investigate. We have handheld pressure gauges we can come put on a hose bib or outside faucet. We also have several pressure recorders where it will actually record the pressure over time for 24 hours or 7 days, depending on how we have it set up. And pressure is very concrete. So it's black and white. Either you have enough pressure or you don't. There's a very distinct regulation on water pressure. And typically our concern on low pressure is that there might be bacterial concerns. Because anytime that you lose pressure, that's an opportunity for bacteria to be introduced. So water main likes to be under pressure. And so we want to keep it that way. So you might get a lot of boil water advisory from your park management. And that is something that is for your own protection because boiling water kills bacteria. So anytime there's pressure lost or there's really low pressure, we typically provide education to the park owner or manager on what sampling and stuff like that needs to be done. Now, if they're doing the sampling, we're probably not going to do much of an investigation in terms of water quality because our first concern is going to be bacteria. If there's other things that might cause water quality issues when there's pressure is if there's cross connections within the park. And that's where you would have not potable water connected with potable water. And most of the time we don't see a whole lot of that. But it certainly can occur. So, and again, the first concern is going to be bacteria. And then I got some questions about customer site piping. So customer site piping is a park that's connected to city water or township water, village water, some other water supply where there's no on-site well system. So what has to happen in order for EGLE to come in and start looking at some stuff? So we can't investigate what we don't know about. So we would encourage phone calls if you're having concerns about the park that you live in. Let us know what's going on. And then we would make a determination on whether to do an investigation or not. Low pressure is extremely easy to investigate. So it's pretty easy to come out and put a pressure gauge on somebody's outside faucet. So that is typically the biggest thing that we investigate because it's really cut and dry and easy to get after an owner about. Then the other question related to that was I've seen EGLE investigate some parks and notify LARA violations, and how does that work? So within the Mobile Home Commission Act, water and sewer is generally designated as falling under EGLE's purview. And there is a designation in there that parks with customer site piping still need to meet the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act. But we do not regulate parks with customer site piping. However, we will do an investigation on drinking water concerns that are brought to us. And then we would report our findings to LARA. So LARA will do enforcement on those items because if we find a violation of the Safe Drinking Water Act, that is automatically a violation of the Mobile Home Commission Act. So I have personally sent stuff to LARA and have seen them take action on it. So I think LARA's action is an evolving process that I'm excited to see. And we work pretty closely with them and have a lot of good conversations. about the best way to tackle these issues. So they do follow up with us to see if issues have been corrected. And then I was asked, what does the health department do versus what EGLE does? So the health department wants to know if there's sewage on the ground. That's important to them to come check out because that's a huge public health concern. And then if you live in a really small park, like where there's fewer than 15 lots, your water and sewer may be regulated by the health department and calls would go to them. The other thing is you can have a park large enough to be a community water supply and not have EGLE regulated sewer. So kind of some of these sort of, I'm going to say smaller-ish parks, like in the 30 home, the 30 lots, like the septic might be small enough to stay at the health department where they would use less than 6,000 gallons a day. So, but anytime there's sewage on the ground, call the health department. They can help you figure out if the park or if the sewer is regulated by them or by us. We're happy to help you figure out who's got regulation of the sewer or the water. So, the health department does not necessarily do park inspections, though. They did at one point in time, and now Laura is doing those inspections. So, I know that there's a community water supply at my park or a well system at my park, and how do I know that it's okay? I'm happy to talk to anybody that has questions about their water system, whether they live in a mobile home park or whether they live in a big city, right? You have a right to know stuff about your water system. So you can always call EGLE, and we can talk to you about any of your concerns. Anybody can send a Freedom of Information Act request to us for information about their water supply. So if you want to know how many times we've written them a violation notice for something, you are welcome to that information via Freedom of Information Act. And then the other place that gives you information about your water system is from your Consumer Confidence Report. Sometimes they're called CCRs, sometimes they're called water quality reports, but a community water supply is obligated to prepare one every year and deliver it to its residents by July 1st. So there are some kind of conditions for the delivery, though. If you're in a smaller park, they are allowed to post it like in the office or at the mailboxes, so you may not get one directly delivered to your home. But if you ask for one, they are obligated to give you one. So that will contain information on detections of regulated contaminants that might have been found in the system in the previous year or the last time that particular contaminant was sampled. So if it's not in the last year, they have to tell you when they collected that sample. And then it also talks about vulnerability of the aquifer and some other stuff. There's usually lead health education information. And so it's a good place to learn about your water quality. And I offer any other questions that anybody might want to ask. My email address is correct on this one. And then this 1-800 number that's at the bottom goes to our EGLE Environmental Assistance Center. So if you aren't super internet savvy and you don't want to try testing those links or tracking down somebody, you can call environmental assistance, tell them you live in a mobile home park in this county, and they can help you get to the right person.